All right, we'll call this meeting, are you ready? Okay, call this meeting to order at 4:15 p.m. the Hoc Facilities Committee. Start with a roll call. Mayor Genrick.
Here.
Alder Johnson is here. Alder Galvin.
Here.
Jesse Sharp. Not here. Garrett Bader.
Here.
Chet Lamers. Not here. Ian Griffiths.
Here.
And Paul Martsky.
Here.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda of the August 24th meeting.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Griffiths, a second by Bader. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item D, approval of the June 24th minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Genrick, a second by Galvin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item E, regular business. Number 1, consideration with possible action to approve the purchase of parcels 11-210, 435 East Walnut, 11-206, 512 Cherry Street, 11-222, 503 East Walnut Street, and 13-128, 212 South Madison Street, for $3.6 million, comprised of $600,000 of Whitneyton 20, $300,000 unspent bonding, $2.7 million general fund balance, and options to purchase for $1, subject to obtaining approved development agreements for parcels 15-169, 501 South Washington Street, 3-876-1, 885 Shawano Avenue, and 6-475, 1634 6th Street, option approved by RDA on August 13th, 2024. Now that we've set the record for the longest agenda item, staff, would you like to provide an overview?
Sure, I can take this one. So, we've been negotiating with the owners of the parcels as indicated on the agenda for the terms that are essentially set forth in the agenda. I guess I don't know if anybody has questions or if we wanted to go to closed session to get into the details as far as valuations and kind of more of the details with respect to the deal. We can. We did execute a letter of intent, basically aligning those terms, the exchange of parcels for parcels and cash at closing, along with removal of printing presses from the building, and some personal property that the city will indicate that they want to retain. Kind of just setting forth what the intentions are of the parties. It's not binding, but something that the sellers didn't want, and the city agreed would be good to have written down, just to kind of reflect on where everybody's standing, and now moving forward with the approvals necessary, and moving towards a purchase and sale agreement.
Okay. For those who aren't accustomed to this, obviously, if we're going to direct staff to negotiate different terms, that's something that we ought to do in closed session. But if it's just, this is obviously a negotiated deal that's in front of us so far. You see the terms of it. If you have further questions, I think that can probably safely occur in open session. But
Sure.
if we're going to direct staff to negotiate, then closed session is a better place to do that. So otherwise, what I would probably do right now for the committee is just open up to any questions for staff that maybe aren't negotiation related, and we'll go from there. So any questions? And what I do is just offer up. I mean, we've obviously been, our charge for the Ad Hoc Facilities Committee was to come up with a cost-effective way to address some of the growing needs that our facilities, our aging facilities, have had. And I was kind of doing some math on this prior to the meeting, and by my count, we were sitting right around $75 million, and that was $10 million on City Hall. We were looking at around $15 million on the fire station and $50 million on the police station. And based on some of the recommendations that have already come out of this body for City Hall and for the fire station, which is already being actively planned, police station was really the last one that we had to crack. I don't know whose idea this was originally was, but I know the mayor, you first called me on this a couple months ago now, and I want to commend you and the staff, because I think this is the type of innovative thinking that we were looking for, was how do we take that $75 million number and make it less? And I think you delivered a proposal that allows us, the committee, to really kind of have that discussion. So the only thing, that as I was looking at it, and Joanne, I think we could probably put this in the motion. I just want to make sure that we see strong language around the redevelopment requirement and a clawback mechanism for the city, so that if property is not redeveloped, that, we can do that. And I think historic preservation ought to be of importance on our fire stations. I'm not certain if Station 1 sits within a historic district. I don't think Station 3 does, but I think that there ought to be some level of oversight for the city to say, hey, we're not going to let you come in and tear those buildings down. You've got to first make, a good try, college try at trying to preserve those first. So, yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, just to chime in a little bit, appreciate the comments, Chair. As you know, this is a discussion that predates my arrival here at City Hall. It's been something that we've known we needed to do for our police officers, for our police station, to develop a 21st century facility that's really worthy of the work that's being done by our officers in this community. My hesitation from the beginning was fiscal, right? It was just trying to figure out a way, to develop a facility that's of the right size, but that isn't going to totally break the bank for the city. And so that's why we, within a few months, I guess, of coming into office, really hit the pause button on what was kind of in the works at that point. I think the stars are kind of aligning with the Press Gazette building becoming available. Everybody, with kind of an engineering sense who's taken a look at it has, I think, basically come away with the understanding that it's got good bones, it's got old systems, and so and we have some unique needs for this facility related to a shooting range, locker rooms, mechanics garages, things of that nature that I think we're really going to rely on our consultants to determine whether or not this is the right facility for us. But feel good about where things stand with this, financially and sort of potential for the building and what it'll mean for city operations. Any questions, related to BD? I know Captain Allen is here. Trista Hobbs from DPW was just on a recent walkthrough with our consultant and can answer some of those questions too.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, Mayor, when we created the ad hoc committee, it was to kind of take some of the preliminary work that was done with the police station, but make sure that we had all the right actors in the room to help guide this decision. Of course, you see a number of private members of our community here today and others that have been part of this committee up to this point to help weigh in on that, including a real estate developer, a contractor, facility manager, an architect and engineer. We had a person who's got expertise in finance, really to help guide this discussion. And so this isn't being made in a bubble. It's really, and of course, in addition to the city staff, so Trista, PD, FD. We did on the fire department side, just for the benefit of the public, we were looking at some alternatives. We looked at building a new station, right, picking up the work that was talked about, and that came in. The preliminary estimates on that were $50 million, and that was pre-COVID. Numbers have only escalated since then. We did look at a renovation in place, which would likely include an addition and would probably include a parking solution, a ramp. That becomes very costly. And so this kind of solves a number of problems that we have that can really bring that overall cost down. So in worst case scenario, we get into this, and Mayor and I talked about this beforehand. Worst case scenario, which I don't anticipate happening, but you plan. What is your contingency plan? And the thought process was that even if the engineers come in here and say, look, it's going to be cost prohibitive to do some of the improvements we need, you still have a property that's appropriately priced for redevelopment. And you may have seen this property was up as part of an auction not long ago. The reserve on this was not met, and so the owner of the property at the time actually turned it away, and that reserve price was higher than what we're paying. So, it's really a good price, I think, reflecting the market value.
There really are no negatives. Everything we know right now, it's good for the police. Even at the worst case scenario of a budget, it could be less than half, a third of the cost of what we were talking about. It improves the customer service experience for anyone that needs to interact with police or city hall. The functionality of creating a true municipal square or parking, dear God, let's bury the power lines. But they could all be improved. It could feel like a very, very good block. There are no negatives.
And it takes us from about 40,000 square feet to 80.
I guess I grew up in that station when I was 10 years old. Like I've said, it was pristine when I started there. It was one story. Municipal court was in the front of it. We had our own gas pump there. We thought we had, something that would last us a long time. And the end result was not anticipating the future or being able to anticipate the future. We probably should have been out of there 10, 15 years ago. We ended up putting on a second floor. We kicked out municipal court. We're still so squeezed for space. It's ridiculous. We didn't anticipate the manpower, staffing, females taking up such a large portion of the department. There's just a ton of things that couldn't be anticipated. This is my only hesitation moving into an older building, actually it's older than this one, is that we're going to end up doing something that 20 years down the road is going to turn out to be a mistake. And I want to make sure we don't do that. So I trust that we're getting a good price for it from what I'm hearing from the people that understand these things. I really like the idea that if it doesn't work out, we have the ability to pivot and still do a lot of good with that property. And then come up with a plan B for the PD. So, I'm willing to go with this program and just see what the experts think once they start getting into the bones and the guts of it and see what we can and cannot do with it. It looks like a win-win right now for everybody.
And Alder Gavin, I did a little bit of preliminary work, and I've got 3 experts at the table on the other side of me here that could validate this, but some of the work that I did was around what is the cost right now, right? And so average cost per square foot to build new facility like this, feedback I received was probably between $300 and $325 per square foot. If you want to renovate this building, there are tiers that come with that, there are special needs it has, right? But you should probably expect between probably $200 and $220 a square foot. So just the per square foot price is different.
Right.
So it's, and again, I'm looking at these guys because that came from a different contractor that deals with these large scale projects, but.
And I'll say, as an officer on the road, I never once asked how much that brand new shiny squad car costs. I just wanted to get in and go. As a person that is working for the people and answers to the people, we have to be serious about the money we're spending. We can't waste their money, and we have to get as much out of every dollar that we ask for them to make this a good project. So I get that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted you to provide some context, right? When I say we could be saving half of that $75 million price tag, where I'm coming up with that number.
Exactly.
So. Alder Eck?
So I have 2 questions. One of them is, and I think that Garrett was talking about, but I was having a hard time hearing, about parking and what the solution would be, because I don't think the lot's big enough. And then second, and it sounds like maybe that's coming down the road as far as cost of renovations. Are there any estimates?
Based on 80,000 square feet and the renovation costs I shared, you'd be around 16 million. So again, that's, compared to 50 million probably to build new, which is what our preliminary number was pre-COVID. Mayor, I don't want to, you've had some conversations around parking. Would you like to share those?
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right in terms of parking capacity right on site. With the Press Gazette building, something that we've talked about with the chief and others at PD is the possibility of housing some squad cars when they're not in use over at the Pine Street ramp, and then having all the vehicles that are necessary for on-squad work, on-staff work, in close proximity to the Press Gazette building, to the new facility. Also probably using some street parking, which is the case over at the existing PD.
So to put perspective on that, Alder Eck, the analysis that we did on the existing site would require us to build a new ramp. Obviously not as big as Pine Street, but several layers, which, right now, construction, probably anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 a stall to construct new. Here we have an underutilized ramp that's nowhere near its capacity, that's already built. So it's, I think that's what kind of helps drive some of the cost savings as well.
What about our specialty vehicles, all the trailers we have for SWAT team, boat, dive, evidence, where would those be?
I'll defer to Mayor.
Yeah, I think that's all part of the process of evaluating, the appropriate changes that need to be made to the facility. But like I said, we use on-street parking currently over existing PD. I think it's possible, especially in the interim, while things are being developed, to use some of Madison Street's capacity on the street there. But I would certainly defer to Captain Allen on some of the conversations that have taken place over at PD, and then, like I said, Trista Hobbs also from DPW has done some great work already on laying things out.
Keep in mind too, Alder Galvin, that as part of this deal, we would gain acquisition of the lot across the street, which at least in the short term could be used for that. I think long term, we probably want to see redevelopment there, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and since we are using TID resources for that, that is something that we would kind of need to see is private development.
And I did have a conversation with Chief Davis around this too, just so everyone's aware, and he is supportive of this. Did talk with him. He said, look, police headquarters have certain demands, right, outside of normal development. He said he feels fairly confident that those can be met within this facility. So he did share with me that he recognizes a new facility. Who wouldn't want a new facility, right? But he recognizes the financial constraints in how that would be really difficult to achieve in this climate. So because of that, he was supportive of this move. So.
I mean, I think from a sustainability perspective too, we're also reusing, right? We're not building, again, that supports the city's thoughts around sustainability and rejuvenation of existing properties and landmarks commission. I think it touches a lot of things. I think the proximity and the location isn't that far from where it currently is, and the location seems good. So I think there's a lot of positives going for it.
Is it the intention that the existing police station will then be put on the market?
Yeah, I think that's the long-term hope. There too, I think one of the big question marks is the new facility, are we capable of putting in a garage to meet the needs of PD? Obviously, we have one that's existing there. If we're able to relocate all of those operations, then absolutely it kind of gets wiped clean. If not, we might need to think about some of those operations that take place over there. But the ideal goal would absolutely be to redevelop that site.
And is the thought that municipal court is coming along with the police department?
Well, that's part of the, not necessarily in the same building. I think there are some state statute prohibitions against co-locating those functions. But we have contracted with a consultant to do the space needs analysis. And so we're going to allow for that process to play out and really help us identify where the best spot for that is. I know we've talked about locating it potentially in this space, right, on second floor here at City Hall, just given the similarities in the space needs with some of these committee rooms and council chambers in comparison to what happens at municipal court, but a lot of that's still to be determined.
And a clarification, the agenda item, the proposed options for the 3 parcels, are all 3 of those options already previously approved by the redevelopment authority, or is it just the 6th Street parcel?
Just 6th Street was approved by RDA.
So the 2 fire stations still have to go before RDA for...
Not necessarily RDA.
Right, so the 2 fire stations are city-owned, so they're going to finance and council for approval. The 6th Street property is RDA-owned, and so RDA had to sign off on that option.
Okay.
Good question. Alder Grant?
Were any of the properties considered in this, or can we talk about that at this point? Or do we have to wait?
When you say any other properties, meaning is part of like a swap or?
Just, is this the only building that was considered for this? Are there any other buildings that we were comparing size, cost, age, condition?
For the staff on that?
No, not, I think we've all kind of been scouring the city for about a decade, for ideal locations, but nothing was compared for this recent acquisition.
Okay, and wasn't that 50 million price with the idea of putting fire, police, city hall all in one building?
No.
That
No.
was just...
Yeah, that was a report that was done even prior to any of us being elected.
Yeah.
That was the last number that had come up. So.
Okay. And the staff would have to park in the ramp to their personal vehicles, I'm assuming? Any feedback? Are they okay with that?
I defer to Captain Allen just in overall comments on.
Yeah, are they okay? I mean, because they currently park in the lot, so now they're going to have to walk to and from.
I wouldn't necessarily directly address how every officer feels about that prospect, but what I would say is we've been trying to figure out a way to secure their vehicles for a very long time. You know, we set aside some bonding money to construct the fence. Costs have just continued to escalate, and we still don't have enough set aside to actually secure that parking. So it does address that issue. We'd be able to kind of wall off officers' vehicles within the ramp and make sure that those are secure. Kind of designate, you know, a section of the ramp for PD use. So it does address that. Now, you know, very few people, you know, want to park their vehicle on a ramp and walk a couple blocks. Like, I understand that that's not something that people are going to necessarily be looking forward to, but it does address that security issue, which I think is pretty important.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Anyone from the public that wishes to speak? Yep, go ahead. We'll entertain a motion to open the
Motion to
floor.
Open the floor.
Second?
We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Genrick. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Sanderson, come on up. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jim Sanderson. Address is 417 Cambridge Street. I took from what the mayor said that it hasn't been decided whether the maintenance garage is going to be able to be implemented into that. I haven't heard any references to that 1960s addition being demolished. So right now it's a matter of trying to figure out whether it could be structurally altered to fit a garage into that space that currently is kind of a deep basement where the printing presses are next to the alley there. So, but there's no plans to tear down that. Okay, that to me, I was thinking buy all that and then demolish half of it would be kind of fiscally irresponsible. But that's all I was interested in knowing. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just in terms of, just kind of address that, it's a loading dock right now, so I think figuring out how you could solve that grade problem is the biggest challenge there.
Maybe Alderstory will finally get his wish to consolidate garages. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Okay, entertain a motion to close the floor.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Martzke, second by Galvin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Any other further discussion, comments, questions? If not, we'll take a motion. What we'd be looking for at this point is a recommendation that would be advanced to the Finance Committee, which is scheduled to meet after this.
Motion to advance to Finance Committee.
Second.
I assume that's a positive recommendation?
Yes.
For clarity's sake?
Yes.
So that was a motion by Bader. Who was the second? By Galvin. Okay, one more time, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Galvin, second by Martzke. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, committee.
Under 30, Dan.